Hey everyone, it's Prismantis. This video I'll be comparing and contrasting some of the work that I did for two different pet commissions. One from 2019 for a family friend's doggy, and the most recent pet commission I've made, which, 2024, of an anthropomorphic cat in a businesswoman's clothes for a client who ordered it for his wife for Valentine's Day, which is the most romantic thing you could possibly do. So, setting them up side by side, you can see some pretty obvious improvements. All right, I want you to guess what they are. Firstly, obviously, the cat is set against a background, even if it is a simple background, and the dog has no background whatsoever. White void, not very good for establishing volume or environment, right? So one of the things that I did differently for the cat, I started to establish volume on the cat's head and body before I started to render fur. That's one of the most obvious things that you can tell between these two. The dog has kind of a weird cel-shaded, tough, flat, kind of crunchy look, whereas on the cat, rendering fur actually was a very light touch thing with just the oil brush on Clip Studio Paint and a few accents with a slightly harder brush. The dog's lighting ended up looking kind of ambiguous. It seems to be coming straight on, whereas the cat's lighting is coming from behind and therefore looks a little bit more like it takes place within an environment. And without a background in the dog's illustration, there's no bounce lights to create volume or atmosphere, whereas the cat does have some bounce lights that you can see on the paw hands on the suit jacket, and additionally it has some rim lighting to make the figure stand against the background, which also benefits from the fact that I put a subtle multiply layer gradient on the right side of the background beneath the cat and the whole figure. This lets the figure in general stand out a little bit more. It makes the rim lighting pop a little bit more, even though the background itself was intentionally supposed to be a little pale. I did reference it from this image, and you'll see me talk a little bit more about this image, especially because I borrow from how the suit jacket looks to make sure that I'm rendering the suit jacket correctly. And the background itself is, I think, a little bit brighter on the woman's stock photo, but I didn't want to make it overwhelm the cat. I think the cat is the centerpiece of this illustration. Additionally, the dog's eyes are rendered kind of cartoonishly. They're a little blank. There's nothing in them, which, I mean, this is accurate of the dog. I know this dog. I've seen this dog. This dog has no brain cells. There's nothing behind the eyes. It's a 7-Eleven in there. Whereas the cat's eyes, I did spend a lot of effort trying to make sure that the cat's eyes were rendered pretty realistically relative to how it can be conveyed, right? And you can see even in the highlights within the cat's eyes, there's a white highlight for general light, but it also has a blue highlight. It's a little blue glimmer that kind of adds a pop of color to the illustration. I think I really like that. So how did I improve? If I just sat here and waited like 4 years, I probably would have made the dog 2.0, but I did not. I made the cat. I improved by studying, which is what you're supposed to do. I studied reference images of the original cat, which you can see here, tiny baby, love her, as well as some other cat portrait artists, such as Marie-Lise Kirsimagi, which you can find on ArtStation. I've linked below. Her pieces are incredibly stylized, but they're still quite realistic. They still have the vibe of the original cat. You get the essence of like life made better by the stylization. And her art also helps me understand how the volume of the cat's skull makes shadows appear at a curve on the side of the cat's face. And you can see that reflected in the final piece. Additionally, not just referencing Marie's art, I also referenced, like I mentioned before, the stock photo of the businesswoman to understand how to reference the fabric of the suit jacket. And some time in the painting process, I noticed that I was starting to feel a little bit limited in the range of brushes that I had for fur, which is why you see me messing around with brushes throughout the Speedpaint, just so you know. Also, something that I did to help the whole process move along, I made a layer just for notes to keep in mind as I went on rendering so I didn't forget anything, because I listen to audiobooks while I paint and I tend to go on autopilot and forget what I have to do. So for details like the whiskers, the little hairs that stick out of the ears, the sense of horizontal layering in the fur of the chest, and tiny claws on the thumbs were essential to remember so that I could make the figure look like a realistic cat. And I also knew that I had to pay special attention to making the cat resemble the actual reference cat the OG kitty cat, which is why I took away, compared to the sketch, some of the fluffy fur on the cheeks, and I made the eyes more square shaped. I made the nose smaller. And at present day, I also benefit from having a better understanding of lighting on typical shapes like cylinders, because I already did studying for that before this piece, right? So notice how on the pen in particular, instead of creating a shadow on the left and a highlight on the right, I instead placed a shadow all along the bottom center of the pen to reflect environmental lighting. I chose to work without line art for this piece, not just to challenge myself, but to make sure that I was making actual improvements when it came to pet portraits. At the time that I made the doggy piece, I was very proud of it, but then I quickly became self-conscious of it, and I didn't touch pet portraits again because I thought to myself, I just don't know how to do them, which is not something that you're allowed to think to yourself as an artist. That's not true. You can do anything you want to do. And I'm very happy that I tried again because the end product is something that I'm really proud of. I'm proud of how the rendering came out, especially on the hand, though I think I could have made it look slightly less glossy. It looks like she's wearing like a brown leather glove, or like a latex glove. I don't know. You know what I mean? And I'm also proud of the top of the white shirt collar. That looks really cool, especially considering it was giving me a really hard time in the middle. Fun fact, I first created the sketch for this piece a few weeks prior, and then eventually when I sat down to refine the sketch and paint it, it was over the course of 2 days, and in total the process took about 6 hours. Or at least that's however much I was filming. The entire time I was also listening to the audiobook for Babel by R.F. Kuang, which was very good. It's my 6th book for January. Way ahead of my goal. Anyway, thanks for watching. You can follow me on social media in the description. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, a ton of other places if you find them. You can also subscribe to me on Patreon, where I post early access to pieces like this one, to sketches, works in progress. You can join a Discord server. You can vote on what I draw for that month. And I'm working on an Etsy store, though you'll hear about that in the future. See you around.